Alright, here we are, today's lesson, graphing using intercepts. Okay, so basically what you're going to do today is, we've talked about graphing using a table. This is going to be a different way of graphing, where you can find the x and y intercept and then graph those points, and then find your linear graph that way. So our learning target today is that students will be able to graph equations by finding the intercepts and plotting their points. Okay, so basically two steps. First you got to find the intercepts, then you're going to plot their points. Here's how you find the intercepts, guys. Pretty simple. To find the x-intercept of a line, you substitute 0 for the y in the line's equation and solve for x. Okay? So you substitute 0 for the y in the line's equation and solve for x. Alright? You want to know what x equals, so that's why you make the y 0. Okay? You want to keep the x the number it is. To find the y-intercept of a line, you want to set y for, it's a mistake, let's make that y for the x in the line's equation and solve for y. Okay? So, again, pretty simple. It's going to be two steps. First you make the y 0, and that tells you what the x-intercept is. Then you make the x 0, and that'll tell you what the y-intercept is. Okay? You'll just solve for those. Okay? If you need to pause, go ahead. Otherwise, I'm going to go on to the next part. Okay, in our first example, we're just going to find the intercepts. We're not going to worry about graphing right now. In this example, I just want to find the intercepts. So, like I said, to find the x-intercept, okay, I'm going to do that first, x-intercept. I'm just going to abbreviate intercept, int. To find the x-intercept, I'm going to plug in 0 for the y. So I'm going to do 3x minus 2 times 0 equals 6. And now I'm just going to solve this. 2 times 0 is 0, so I get 3 minus 0 is, or 3x minus 0 is 3x, equals 6. Divide both sides by 3. Yes, you have to show all of your work for my class. And x equals 2. Okay? For the y-intercept, I'm going to make the x 0. So I'm going to do 3 times 0 minus 2y equals 6. 3 times 0 is 0. 0 minus 2y is negative 2y. Equals 6, divide both sides by negative 2, and you get y equals negative 3. So, I asked you to find the intercepts, so my intercepts are the x-intercept is equal to 2, and the y-intercept is equal to negative 3. And that is my answer. Okay, this is my work here. I just did all the work solving for it. Yes, you got to show all those steps and go through all that work. Okay, and then there's your answer right there. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next page, so if you need to pause, go ahead. In my next example, I want to graph. I'm going to use the intercepts to graph the linear equation. Now you'll notice that this is the same equation that I just gave you, so I already know what the answers are. I'm just going to rewrite them here. The x-intercept, remember, was equal to 2, and the y-intercept is equal to negative 3. Okay, so how do I find my answers knowing the information? Well, if the x-intercept is 2, that's where it crosses the x-axis, so that's going to give the ordered pair of 2, 0. The y-intercept is negative 3, so that's where it's going to cross the y-axis, so that's going to have an ordered pair of 0, negative 3. So I can take those and plug them in. It's pretty simple to plug them in there, okay? In this first equation, that's when x was 2, is when the y was 0, so that's why it's 2, 0. And in the y-intercept, that's when the x was 0, and then the y was negative 3, that's why it's 0, negative 3. Okay? Now that I have 2 points, that's all I need to graph a line. I'm going to plot those 2 points. So 2, 0 is going to be plotted right here. And there's my x-intercept, where it crosses the x-axis. And then my y-intercept, where it crosses the y-axis, is going to be 0, negative 3. So I plot that down. 1, 2, 3. Put my point, and then just draw my line through those points. And there's my line. And I just graphed it. Okay? And that's all you have to do for these. Alright? Questions? If you have any questions, make sure you jot down any questions to ask me the next day. Okay? Alright, I'm going to move on. If you need to pause, go ahead and pause. Otherwise, I'm going to go to the last example. Alright, in the last example, we're going to be writing and graphing an equation. Okay? So, the word problem. You are canoeing along a 12-mile stretch of river. You travel 4 miles an hour when paddling and 2 miles an hour when drifting. write and graph an equation describing your possible paddling and, oh, there's a typo, and drifting times for the trip. Give 3 possible combinations of paddling and drifting times. Now, I'm not telling you how long you're paddling for or how long you're drifting for, so you gotta write an equation for this with an x and y. You have 2 variables, okay? I have my paddling variable, and I'm going to make that x, and I have my drifting variable, and I'm going to make that y. So when I write my equation, guys, I can paddling time plus my drifting time is going to equal my total distance that I've traveled there. Okay, so my paddling distance, to find that, since I'm traveling 4 miles an hour, I'm going to take 4 times however many miles I travel. Okay, I'm not sure how many I will, but that's going to be x. Alright, plus 2 for 2 miles an hour times how long I'm drifting for, 2y. And that'll give me my drifting distance. Okay, and when I get that all done, I went on a 12-mile stretch, so I want all of that to equal 12. So I have when you're looking at these problems and you have 2 things that are going on, paddling and drifting, that is going to give you 2 variables, okay, and then you just set them up as an equation, equaling, in this case, how many miles I want to go, which is the 12 miles. Okay, I'm going to go through the same practice I did before, and I'm going to find my x and my y intercepts. So to find my x-intercept first, I'm going to do 4x plus 2 times 0 equals 12. That's going to be 4x equals 12. Divide both sides by 4. I get x equals 3. So that means that point's going to be 3, 0. And then for my y-intercept, I'm going to do 4 times 0 plus 2y equals 12. That's going to be 2y equals 12. Divide by 2. And I get y equals 6. And that's going to be 0, 6. Okay? So those are my 2 points, and now I'm going to plot those. So 3, 0, 1, 2, 3, and then 0, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I'm going to draw my line through that. Now, this is actually going to stop and start here because these are maxed values because I'm only going 12 miles, so I can't really go beyond those in either direction. Okay? So there's my graph. So now it says graph, so it said write and graph an equation. So I just graphed it, wrote my equation right here, graphed my equation on there, and then the next question says give 3 possible combinations of paddling and drifting times. Okay, well, that means there's 3 ordered pair. One of them can be 3, 0. All right, 3 is the x represents my paddling, so I could paddle for 3 hours. Okay, paddle for 3 hours. Alright, my next one is 0, 6. The 6 is my drifting time. I could drift for 6 hours. Be a lot of drifting, but I could drift for 6 hours. There's 2. Alright, now I'm going to look at my graph, and I'm going to see if it goes through any points. Here's another point that it goes through. Oh, here's another point. Alright, so I'm going to use this point here, this 2, 2. Okay, and I'm just going to say, alright, we have the point 2, 2. So I could say I could paddle for 2 hours, alright, and drift for 2 hours also. Okay, and that's going to be my third choice. So those are 3 different possible paddling and drifting times that I could have for the trip. Okay, that is all for today. If you have any questions or anything, make sure you write them down so we can answer them tomorrow, and otherwise we'll practice these tomorrow in class. Have a great night.